Welcome to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, a Full Mind production. At Full Mind, our vision is to ensure every child has access to an exceptional education. Each episode, we will be joined by pathfinders within and around the education space who are bringing about transformational change on behalf of deserving students. I am your host, Hayley Spira-Bauer. Welcome back, everybody, to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. You know, it's always a pleasure to have guests on that are mission aligned, as pretty much all of our guests are. But there is someone today that I'm very excited to introduce you to, who I believe is not just talking the talk, but is actually walking the walk. I'd like to welcome Sri Madhusudan Sai onto the podcast. Welcome, Sai. How are you?
Thank you, Hayley. Thank you for having me here on your podcast. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you.
I am too. I know you have a very interesting story, and I think you'll get to untangle it for us here. But starting us off, perhaps you could tell everybody, how did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself?
Well, you see, I belong to India and to the central region of India, where most of the people are living in the hills, you see, something like Red Indians in America. So they are the people like the people of Dakota, Lakota, and places like that. So they are the aboriginals and natives, but we are not the natives. We were working for industrial town there. So I grew up in between all such people who were deprived of education and basic necessities of life because they just were kind of natives and aboriginal kind of people. And I really wondered if I could ever do something for them when I grow up and I have the capacity to help them. And so I grew up later. I went on to do my education. I am a master's in chemistry and also in business management. And then I thought I must do something about it. That's when my paths crossed with a very great philanthropist and a social and spiritual leader called Sai Baba in India, who is quite famous and many, many people from around the world follow him. So I became a student at his institute, learned about these values of free and values-based education. That was given in his schools and his colleges. So I was very inspired by that idea of education. I thought if I can take it to all parts of the world and I can sort of spread it, scatter like seeds, and then they may grow into mighty trees and bear fruits of good citizens, good human beings. And that is that mission. Close to 15 years ago, I started on this path. And we started with a small school in South India, which was a residential facility for students to come and stay and learn all through from their school all the way to the university, and not even a single cent is charged to them for their stay, food, clothing, and education, of course, the tuition and other things. That started with one school and then it grew into a university, and now we have 22 such campuses in India, including 3 university campuses and a medical school, which is also entirely free and perhaps is the only one in India that is totally free. And people just come with a pair of clothes. If they're qualified, they get the seat, they get the medical seat or the university seat, and they can study all the way up to PhDs and doctoral, postdoctoral programs, medical programs. And that's entirely free. So that was my vision, that how can I democratize education, and not just democratize it by making it free, but also ensure that all those who are the recipients of such an education, they become the givers. They give back to the society. They become the people who further the cause of such education to other people. So a lot of our students got inspired. There are close to 4,000 who study here. But then beyond that, we have gone to Nigeria, where 1,000 students study. We have in Sri Lanka. We also work with people in Australia and many other places. We also have a values education, human values education program, which is called Value Educate the World. And that's now running in 25 plus countries. So the idea was to use education as a power, a tool to transform the society, especially the younger ones. So my concept is that education is not a privilege, it's a fundamental human right. And if somebody cannot access it because they cannot afford it, then it is the responsibility of the whole society to come together and make sure that it is provided to the children. So that is, like, in a nutshell, what we are exactly doing right now.
You know, I said in the introduction that you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. And you've provided some really clear statistics on the number of schools you've opened, the number of countries you've touched. I have a stat, and you'll have to confirm that this is accurate for me, but in the free pediatric cardiac hospitals you've over 32,000 surgeries and counting on patients that are attending these hospitals. Not to mention, you're creating lifelong professionals as you have a medical school as well. But you started as with One World, One Family as one school and one hospital, one classroom, one hospital. Can you talk about what the resources looked like in the early days and how that's transformed over time?
Yeah, I started with absolutely zero. And I think it's a good way to start because then you're very honest, you're very diligent, and you're very careful because you have really nothing to kind of begin with, but then you have a big dream, you have passion, and you have this willingness to commit everything that you have to this mission. So I came here, I met some right people, they were inspired by the idea, and then some of them came and met me because they were also the followers of the same philanthropist and teacher, as I mentioned, Satyai Baba. So they said, this is a wonderful thing, and you are blessed that you were a student of his, and now you have this mission in your hand. And they all came forward to support. So I think it was the honesty and the truthfulness and this willingness to do everything that it takes to start a school in a remote rural area. That was kind of infectious. I think it rubbed on to the like-minded people. So we started with just a little over, let us say, in today's terms, probably 500,000 US dollars. With that, we started the first school. And now I think we have spent, I have no clue, but probably, I don't know, it's about 300 million US dollars plus. So that has happened over the last 15 years with schools, colleges, universities, medical school, and so many other projects around the world. So you see, I feel that it's just the honesty, it's just truthfulness, it is your commitment to the cause. I started with zero, I had nothing, no single human being around me, not a dollar in my pocket. But I just came and looked for people, and I shared my thought, my vision, and so many people just joined, and it's been a tremendous, incredible journey. It's very difficult to describe in words what's been done in 15 years with the help of so many people from around the world who believe in this cause of democratizing healthcare, democratizing education, what you call educational justice, healthcare justice. And we also have a very wonderful nutrition program which serves 10 million children every day across India, in some parts of Sri Lanka, in some parts of Africa, and some Southeast Asian countries. And these children get a morning nutrition meal. It's a glass of hot millet-based, millet is a local grain-based food, which is fortified with all the micronutrients that the children need to grow. And that's given to so many children across 150,000 locations every day, every single school day. All this was possible because I think what you said, walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Sorry, I have to take a moment. Like, I don't want the pace of this podcast to overshadow the incredible contribution you are making to society. It is astounding the amount of impact you are having daily all over the world. I have so many more questions that I'm going to dive into in a second, but I do have to go with my emotion here and say thank you. It is incredible to just meet someone who has dedicated their life to actually transforming what's possible for those who are furthest from justice, whether it be healthcare justice, educational justice. It really does give me pause, and I'm never, ever at a loss for words.
I know, let it sink in.
One thing that I find really aligned with you on is that education is the most powerful force for lasting change, but only when it develops the whole person. Can you talk about what integral education, as you say, actually looks like in your classrooms day to day?
Sure. Our education model is actually based on an old Indian ancient principle of Gurukula, we call it, where the students must stay with the teachers. It's not just that you come, learn, and go back home. So it's a residential system, essentially. So we have got student hostels within the campus. We've got, of course, the academic facilities, research facilities, all that within the same campus premises. So what happens is that the students literally live on the campus with the teachers all the time. And they learn from them even beyond the school hours. So that is very important because what we teach them in the classroom is just one part of the education. But what they learn beyond the classrooms by interacting with each other, interacting with the teachers, and learning so many more skills and so many other programs like music, sports, arts, management of events, or conducting some social service initiatives, or any other hobby or passions that they want to follow. We encourage them to follow all of that because we feel that just the academic education, which only fills the head with information, is not sufficient. It only gives a lopsided growth to the person that the student is. So we have to recognize him as a whole person, and he has emotional needs, he has social needs, and also because we are from a Indian kind of a system, we also have spiritual needs, which is now being often talked about. I'm not talking about religious needs, but essentially spiritual needs means to be aware of who you truly are, what you truly are. So yes, you are a human being with your physical needs, your intellectual needs, your emotional needs, your social needs, and more importantly, your spiritual needs, when you can feel that peace and that quiet within in moments of the day, and which helps you to ground yourself, you see. So we teach all of these, and they have been packaged very well through very structured pedagogy and assessment system, where the students are not just measured for their academic success, which is the done thing in all educational institutions, that's the bottom line. But then along with that, how they interact with their peers, how they socialize with each other, and they're able to adjust and live with each other by learning about various cultures. And because our students come from different backgrounds, they are not necessarily from the same social status or the same cultural backgrounds. It's a mixed bag of, a potpourri of a lot of different students. So they all learn about the society. It's a miniature, world inside our hostels. So that is something that I really want to emphasize upon, because now with this digital, media and digital learning coming in, I feel the students are becoming social recluses. They just don't know how to look into each other's eyes and talk to each other in a room. They become uncomfortable. So these are things that we wanted to get rid of. So we kept social media to the minimum. Digital education is there, but just as it is necessary, not more, not less. But largely it is physical interactions in a classroom. The teacher must stand there, interact with the students, play with them. In fact, this teacher lives on the same campus as the students. So the students have access to the teacher all the time. And the best part is many of these teachers are our own homegrown students who chose to become teachers because they're so impressed and they wanted to give back to many more children who are like them and vulnerable and, who couldn't afford education. So that's a beautiful system where, those who are the beneficiaries have become benefactors, and they carry the value system within them because they've been groomed that way. So it makes my job easy to pass on those values to the next generation. So I just have to kind of look at everything from a distance, and they do their job. They do wonderfully well. You mentioned you have the program where you provide teachers for people, for schools in the world, and they're incredible teachers, I'm sure. So this is the same model. You create more teachers, you create better education systems, then it is scalable, it is replicable, it is reproducible, and then it is sustainable. So that is how we cater to all forms of education, as I mentioned. And I encourage students to not just think of success as what's the money that they will make at the end of their education, or what kind of social status they will have, because they have no obligations here. They don't have financial burden. They don't have student loans or educational debts. So they are free in thinking. They are able to choose what they love to do. And that is how I feel we can build excellence in the society, because everybody is doing their passion. They're not just doing things for the sake of earning some money or making the two ends meet, sacrificing their real passion and the person that they are. And that brings amazing artists out of our education institutions. It brings musicians, farmers, agriculturists, that is bringing out many teachers and educationists and academicians, all kinds of people, apart from, of course, engineers and doctors and all the regular thing that everybody wants to be. And they're scientists, innovators. So that's the success that I talk about, that everybody is able to do what they're born to do, what they're blessed to do. And we provide them just the ecosystem, the right kind of facilities. And we are just facilitators for their own discovery, self-discovery through our education system. And that's something that is very satisfying for me.
You mentioned the scale of the organization of the foundation and everything that it's built and provided for. One question I have, in education, and especially in ed tech, which is the space I live and breathe in, is we want to maintain quality as we reach more and more students. So how do you keep the same values and quality of instruction consistent from one campus to the next? What secrets can you share with us?
Sure. Initially, it was a big challenge when we were taking teachers from the outside who were just trained in other institutions or who got an education in some other institutions because they were unable to carry the same quality and consistency of our messaging, our narratives, and our construct of what an education system should look like. So we had a lot of challenges. That's when we built our own university, which can produce teachers and academicians because we were not having the same quality. And now these people who are our own, close to 300 of them, have joined our educational institutions. So student to teacher ratio is approximately 10:1, that for every 10 students, there is a teacher. That gives a lot of customized, personalized attention to every student. And they're all, as you know, their learning paces are different for each student. They need a lot of attention, especially when they come from very challenged and difficult backgrounds. You see, there are learning gaps. So everyone needs a special hand holding, and that is what we are able to do with our own teachers whom we have created within the system. So that is how we are ensuring consistency and quality, both academic as well as what I mentioned, the social, the emotional, and other aspects of their education. We also have a very strong assessment program. We call it as a humane quotient. Like you have intellectual quotient, intelligence quotient, or emotional quotient. We have something called humane quotient, which is comprising of their intellectual, social, emotional, and spiritual quotients. So we have a very scientifically designed program that is done with self-reviews, that is self-audits of the students, peer reviews, reviews by the teacher, the parents, and anybody else whom they interact with in the campus, and also from their classmates and things like that. So that gives them an understanding of how the world perceives them and how they have to modify themselves to help everybody understand them better. So it's a process of self-discovery. It takes a while, but the consistency is maintained largely because we have our homegrown teachers and educators, and that helps us to maintain the quality and consistency across.
One really important mindset when you think about free education is that it actually requires a lot of support and intervention and wraparound services to deliver it well. What would you say has been the biggest misconception people have about the free education that's being provided?
Well, most of the people think that when you give something for free, people don't value it. That's how they think of it in India, at least. You give something for free and people don't care for it. They would waste it. And they would not truly appreciate what goes into giving them a free education. So I was very conscious of that because I didn't want anybody to take us casually or take us for granted because free education was available and we were a charity and we were anyway supposed to do this. I never wanted that attitude to set in any of our students. So what we did is that we selected our students very, very carefully. We go out into the villages, we go out into the rural areas, we do door-to-door survey with the help of the local teachers there. We pick and choose our students. Students don't choose us. We choose our students. We choose our parents. And then we do a thorough 6 months of introduction to our system. And we give them an opportunity. If you still don't want to join us, you don't appreciate us, we don't like you, you don't like us, we can still call it a day and you can go home. Because we don't want to don't want you to live in a system which you don't truly appreciate. So because once we take the child, he's with us or she's with us for 15 years and maybe even beyond, because they will become a part of our mission. They'll become teachers. So it's like a marriage, You have to be very careful when you're married. You need to choose the right partner. So we do a lot of due diligence. It's a slow process. It's a painstaking process, but our team does that. They go miles, sometimes 100 miles, 200 miles, looking for the right kind of students for each of these campuses. And as you know, India is a very large country and it's full of villages. Most of our kids live in villages and rural areas because that's where the population is more. The urban population is declining like most of the developed nations. So our children live there and they have very little access to us. So it's we who go out, pick our students, help them appreciate what we're doing. And I would say that 95% times we are right. There are mistakes when we wrongly assess a student or a parent, and then later they don't want to be a part of the system or they don't understand the value of it. Sometimes the parents are not educated, so they don't understand the value of education. They want their kids back as soon as they can earn a little bit, you can put them to work. So they want to withdraw their kids halfway through. So we have strong systems now in place, including financial penalties, because sometimes people don't understand anything other than the language of finance and penalties. So we tell them, look, if you withdraw the child, you have made a hole there in the system, and I can't take another child because we have a 15-year integrated system of education. I can't take somebody halfway through. So you are essentially ruining the opportunity of somebody else who could have been here. So we have made very strict, stringent rules. And the second thing, and very interesting thing that I don't think any school does, is we take the parents and tell them that we don't charge you a rupee. It's all free for you, but you must come and serve as a volunteer for 15 days in any of our campuses or hospitals. That helps the parents align themselves to our educational culture, to our systems culture. And so in the future, whenever there is a conflict, when the parents want the child back, we are able to impress upon them because they now understand our culture better. So every parent has to come and do 15 days of voluntary work. That is in 2 different weeks, in 2 different parts of the year as per their convenience. And we pay for their travel also. We don't charge the parents because we know they're so poor, they can't even pay for their bus fares. So we pay for that, but we want to ensure that they're here with us and they understand who we are. And they are part of this educational journey of their own child all through the 15 years that the child is with us. So that far we have gone to ensure that the free education and the misconceptions around it, that it won't work, people will take it for granted, people will just walk in and walk out at their will, and it's not going to be a sustainable thing. I think we have bust all those myths around free education and we have really made it work. So that is something that we have achieved with a lot of intense focus and hard work.
Can you share a specific story about a family who really captures why the integrated model of health, food, education together matters so much?
Yes, I think one interesting example I want to share with you, because this girl has just joined us in her 6th grade. She's 12 years old and she's from the northern side of India, which is like at least 1,500 kilometers away. And why did she come all the way to the southern India where there's so much of cultural differences? It's because when she was a baby, less than 1 year old, she was operated for a congenital heart disease in our own hospital in central India. And the story is that she was so sick that she had multiple heart failures, her lungs collapsed several times, and we had to keep her in the ICU or NICU, whichever way you put it, for 100 days and look after her. No other hospital will do this because it's very expensive to keep it. We have no reimbursements and no way to be repaid because they're a very poor family with 3 girls in the family and the father being handicapped. It's very difficult for them to think of keeping a baby in ICU even after the surgery for 100 days. But we nursed the baby for 100 days. She made it. She came out of the ICU hale and hearty. Today she is 12 years old. She has joined our educational institution as a young bright girl. And do you believe? She's a karate champion. She's already a karate champion. And that's what health and education put together have done for this girl. And I have several examples of students who had surgeries at the hospitals. They were saved because of the hospitals. And now they are studying in our institutions. And many of them want to become doctors naturally because they have been benefited. They want to benefit more. Many want to become nurses. They are aligned towards the healthcare side. Similarly, from our nutrition program, I would like to give you an example where nutrition program works in remote rural areas, in rural schools. And we find very bright children over there, but we know that their growth will be stunted if they don't get the next opportunity. So when we go and serve nutrition to these kids, we do spot some of those bright stars. Then we have to convince the parents that please let this child come to our institute. She or he would have a great opportunity. I have plenty of such children who would be otherwise laboring away in their farms and fields, which is not a bad thing, but not at that age. They should get their education. So I have a lot of children who come like that. And slowly, it so happened that many of our campuses are rural campuses. We have acres and acres of lands. The parents become a part of the system. They say, we are landless farmers. We are working as laborers in somebody's field. Can we join your mission and become a part of your mission? We can grow vegetables for you. So they run our, whatever called kitchen gardens. They grow our organic, fresh vegetables in our own campuses. And that also has kind of helped the institution run better. So we have plenty of examples, but this girl's example is very fresh because she just joined and I just saw her and I was so surprised. She looks such a bright and young girl with pink cheeks. She wasn't like that. She was just bones and skin when I met her last time in the hospital when she was in the ICU. So yes, a lot of success stories like that.
I appreciate the level of detail you shared there. Sai, we're coming to the end of our conversation incredibly, and I'm wondering what advice you might give an educator or an education leader who's really trying to chart their own path today, what you might tell them.
Love your children, love your students. That's the most important thing about education. Everything else happens. But if you can love your children truly from your heart, and you can accept them as they are, I think that's where the education truly begins. So all educators must know how to love their children. And I tell our teachers, if you don't love your child, you lose the right to educate the child. You lose the right to correct the child. So love your children. That is the first and foremost lesson for any educator when they are in the field of education.
Oof. Well
Does that
said.
make sense?
Well said. I love that, though. I love that because honestly, every child has to feel love for multiple places in their life so they could feel supported and grow. And I really appreciate that. Sai, you've been such a pleasure having on. Thank you so much for joining the Learning Can't Wait podcast and sharing your story and your work with our audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Your energy is so infectious. I don't speak in such loud voice, but I think you just rubbed it onto me. I had to match up your frequency. So yeah, thank you for that.
We bring out the best in each other. I think that's the bottom line on this conversation.
Looks like, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if you ever visit India, do see us.
I would love to. And thank you to everybody tuning in today for joining the Learning Can't Wait podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share this episode. Be the first to know when we have a new episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a suggestion for an episode, email us at podcast@fullmindlearning.com.